Lights of Bikini Bottom flickered weakly as Squidward Tentacles stood at the edge of his porch, staring out at the city that had long lost its charm. The streets were quieter now, not with peace, but with the heavy, unsettling silence that came when fear ruled. Crime had wormed its way into every corner of the town, and no matter where Squidward looked, he could feel the decay setting in. He had always hated this place, hated the constant noise and the neighbors who never respected his desire for solitude. But it was home. Or, at least, it had been. Now, everything was different. The air in Bikini Bottom felt heavier, like a dark cloud hung over the city, suffocating everyone beneath it. The cheerful buzz of the town had faded into a distant memory, replaced by the whispers of something more sinister. And tonight, those whispers had finally reached Squidward's door. The phone rang. Squidward picked up the receiver, expecting the usual telemarketer, or maybe even one of the few remaining acquaintances who still cared to check in on him. But when the voice on the other end spoke, Squidward felt his world tilt. "Mr. Tentacles, this is Officer Bass from Bikini Bottom PD," the voice said, calm but with a certain edge that told Squidward something was wrong. "I'm afraid we have some bad news." His heart pounded in his chest. What kind of news? There was a pause, a long, suffocating pause that seemed to stretch into eternity. "Your family, sir. There's been an incident." The details of that night were etched into Squidward's mind like a scar. His family, his parents, his cousins, even his once estranged brother, all killed in what the police called a business dispute gone wrong. But Squidward knew better. This wasn't an accident. This was something darker, something deliberate. It didn't take long for him to uncover the truth. Mr. Krabs, the once jovial but always greedy owner of the Krusty Krab, had been involved in shady deals for years, growing his empire through whatever means necessary. His hunger for wealth had made him ruthless, and Squidward's family had become collateral damage in one of Mr. Krabs' underworld dealings. Squidward stared at the case files the police had reluctantly handed him, his breath shallow as he read the cold clinical details of their deaths. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages, each word cutting deeper into his soul. There were photos too, images he wished he could burn from his memory. The streets of Bikini Bottom had never been kind, but this was unforgivable. But it wasn't just the loss of his family that shattered Squidward's world. There had been one other, Squilliam Fancyson. Squilliam had always been Squidward's rival, his arrogant, wealthy nemesis, who had always rubbed his success in Squidward's face. But despite their animosity, there had been a strange bond between them. Their rivalry had kept Squidward motivated, kept him striving for more, even when he didn't want to admit it. And now, Squilliam was dead too. Squilliam had been at the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in the crossfire of Mr. Krabs' escalating war with the underground syndicates of Bikini Bottom. His death, like the others, had been cold, violent, and unnecessary. But in his will, Squilliam had left something behind, something that would change Squidward's life forever. An inheritance. The will came as a shock. Squilliam, in his final act, had left Squidward his entire fortune. The extravagant wealth that had once been a source of jealousy and resentment was now Squidward's. But the money brought no comfort. It couldn't bring back his family, and it couldn't undo the horror of what had happened. Squidward stared at the legal documents in his lap, his mind racing. He had never wanted wealth. He had never needed it. But now, the fortune left to him by Squilliam represented something more than just money. It was power. It was a means to an end. It was a way to fight back. In the weeks that followed the death, Squidward's sorrow festered into something darker, something far more dangerous. The city was rotting from the inside out, and no one seemed to care. The police were powerless, the citizens too frightened to act, and in the shadows, crime lords like Mr. Krabs flourished. But Squidward wasn't powerless anymore. He packed his belongings, sold his house, and disappeared from Bikini Bottom. He needed time. Time to grieve, time to plan, and time to prepare for what was coming next. And there was only one place where he could do that: Rock Bottom. The deep, dark trench beneath Bikini Bottom was a place most residents feared to visit, and for good reason. It was a desolate wasteland, a place where law and order didn't exist, where the only rule was survival. But for Squidward, it was the perfect place to begin his transformation. He spent months there training, honing his body and mind into a weapon. The arts of combat, stealth, and strategy, as skills he had never thought he'd need, became his obsession. He was no longer the disgruntled cashier at the Krusty Krab. He was becoming something else. Something that would strike fear into the hearts of those who had ruined his life. During the day, he studied the criminal underworld, learning everything he could about the players involved. At night, he trained in the shadows, perfecting his movements, learning how to become invisible in the dark, how to use the fear that ruled Rock Bottom to his advantage. But it wasn't just his body that needed preparation. In an abandoned cave beneath the trench, Squidward began building his arsenal. Using the vast fortune left to him by Squilliam, he designed a suit, a sleek armored exoskeleton that would allow him to move swiftly and strike without warning. The suit was matte black, blending into the shadows, with reinforced plating to protect him from the inevitable dangers he would face, and atop his head, a mask. One that concealed his identity, but more importantly, one that projected the image of something no criminal wanted to see: a bat. Squidward's transformation was complete. He was no longer just a disgruntled, overlooked musician. He had become something far more powerful. He was Bat Squid. When Bat Squid returned to Bikini Bottom, the city was worse than he had imagined. The once bustling streets were now empty after dark, with only the faint flicker of streetlights illuminating the cracked pavement. The shadow of fear loomed over everything, and it wasn't hard to see why. SpongeBob, once the town's cheerful fry cook, had become something unrecognizable. His descent into madness had been swift and brutal, earning him the nickname the Joker among the citizens. No one knew exactly what had pushed SpongeBob over the edge, but the results were undeniable. He ruled Bikini Bottom with chaos, leaving a trail of destruction wherever he went. And at his side, controlling the criminal underworld, was Mr. Krabs. The Krusty Krab, once a simple fast food joint, was now the center of Krabs' empire. He had built a criminal syndicate, trafficking in illegal substances, weapons, and anything else that could make him a quick buck. The money flowed in and the bodies piled up. But Bat Squid wasn't here to stop the Joker. Not yet. He was here for Mr. Krabs. Squidward, or rather Bat Squid, set up a secret lair beneath the ruins of an old factory on the outskirts of the city. It was a base of operations, filled with surveillance equipment, weapons, and everything he needed to wage his war on the criminal empire that had taken everything from him. Every night he patrolled the streets of Bikini Bottom, watching from the shadows as the crime lords and thugs moved freely. He took down smaller criminals at first, gathering information, learning the patterns of those who controlled the city. But every move he made brought him closer to his true target. And then, one night, he learned the truth. Mr. Krabs and the Joker were planning something big, something that would poison the entire town. They were preparing to unleash a chemical toxin into the water supply, one that would drive the citizens mad, turning them into mindless puppets under the Joker's control. It was a plan so twisted, so devastating, that even the most hardened criminals in the city feared what was coming. But Bat Squid wasn't afraid. He was ready. The nights in Bikini Bottom had grown colder since Squidward returned as Bat Squid. The once vibrant city was now a breeding ground for crime, chaos, and terror. Underneath the surface, tensions simmered, and no one dared walk the streets alone after dark. The citizens were prisoners in their own homes, too frightened to challenge the rule of Mr. Krabs and the Joker. But Bat Squid didn't fear the night, he thrived in it. From the shadows of his lair, Bat Squid had watched the city decay further into madness. His surveillance network extended into every corner of Bikini Bottom, with hidden cameras and listening devices tracking the movements of every major player in the criminal underworld. And the information he had gathered told a grim story. Mr. Krabs and the Joker were close to unleashing their twisted plan. They were going to poison the town. Bat Squid didn't know all the details yet, but his instincts told him that time was running out. He had spent weeks tracking the Joker's movements, mapping out the flow of illegal chemicals through the city's black market, and now he was ready to make his move. Deep within Bikini Bottom's industrial district, the Joker had claimed an abandoned amusement park as his base of operations. It was the perfect lair for someone as twisted as SpongeBob had become. A chaotic labyrinth of rusted roller coasters, broken down carnival games, and cracked mirrors. The once colorful park was now a desolate, nightmarish playground, and the Joker had filled it with his gang of deranged followers. Bat Squid stood on a case. A rooftop overlooking the park. His eyes narrowed as he watched the activity below. From the shadows he could see the Joker's henchmen, thugs armed with knives, bats, and makeshift weapons patrolling the area. They moved like ants, scurrying between broken down attractions as they loaded barrels of chemicals into trucks.
"This is it," Bat Squid muttered under his breath. "They're getting ready." He could see the Joker himself in the distance, standing at the center of the park, his twisted grin stretched wide across his face. SpongeBob, the Joker, wore the same yellow suit he always had, but now his eyes gleamed with madness, his smile more menacing than ever. The Joker was directing his gang, overseeing every detail of the operation with sadistic glee. Bat Squid's grip tightened on the edge of the roof. He couldn't wait any longer. The time for surveillance was over. Now, it was time for action. In one swift motion, Bat Squid leapt from the rooftop, gliding silently through the air with his cape billowing behind him. He landed without a sound on the ground below, moving like a shadow through the amusement park's twisted alleys. The henchmen didn't see him coming until it was too late. The first thug went down with a single punch, his body crumpling to the ground. Bat Squid moved through the park like a phantom, taking down each of the Joker's henchmen with ruthless efficiency. He moved silently, blending into the darkness, his fists connecting with bone and flesh in rapid succession. It wasn't long before the Joker noticed. "Well, well, well," the Joker's voice echoed through the park, filled with that maddening, high-pitched laughter that SpongeBob had perfected in his descent into insanity. "If it isn't the party pooper himself, come out, Squiddy, let's have some fun." Bat Squid emerged from the shadows, his cape swirling around him as he stepped into the dim light of the broken street lamps. The Joker stood across from him, surrounded by the barrels of chemicals that would soon flood Bikini Bottom's water supply. "You really think you can stop this, Squidward?" The Joker grinned, his eyes gleaming with a twisted sort of delight. "You're too late. I've already won." "You haven't won anything," Bat Squid growled, his voice deep and menacing beneath his mask. "This ends tonight." The Joker's grin widened as he skipped toward Bat Squid, his movements erratic and playful, like a clown on the verge of a breakdown. "Oh, Squidward, you always were such a downer. That's why no one ever liked you. But me, I'm the life of the party." Bat Squid's fists clenched. He could feel the rage boiling beneath the surface, the desire to rip that smile off the Joker's face once and for all. But he couldn't lose control. Not yet. "This isn't a game," Bat Squid said, his voice low. "You're going to poison the entire city. You'll kill thousands." The Joker shrugged, unbothered. Some of them will survive. And those that don't, well, they weren't having much fun anyway. Bat Squid's patience snapped. Before the Joker could react, Bat Squid lunged forward, striking the Joker across the face with a vicious punch. The force of the blow sent the Joker staggering back, his laughter breaking into a pained grunt. But the Joker recovered quickly, his grin returning even as blood dripped from his lip. "Ooh, I like this new you, Squidward," the Joker giggled, wiping the blood from his mouth. "You finally learned how to play rough." Bat Squid didn't respond. He had already closed the distance between them, his fists flying in a flurry of strikes. The Joker dodged and weaved, his laughter echoing through the park as the two engaged in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. But the Joker was slippery. Every time Bat Squid thought he had him cornered, the Joker would slip away, his maniacal laughter ringing in the air. The fight was exhausting, but Bat Squid couldn't let up. He had to end this now before the Joker's plan came to fruition. And then, in a moment of distraction, the Joker threw something at Bat Squid, a small vial filled with a bright green liquid. Bat Squid barely had time to react before the vial shattered on the ground, releasing a cloud of toxic gas. Bat Squid stumbled back, coughing as the gas filled his lungs, his vision blurring. The Joker's laughter grew louder as Bat Squid struggled to stay on his feet. "You didn't think I'd make it that easy, did you, Bat Squid? The fun's just beginning." As Bat Squid fought through the effects of the gas, the Joker skipped away, disappearing into the shadows. Bat Squid's mind raced. He couldn't let the Joker escape, not after coming this far. But just as he was about to give chase, a new figure emerged from the darkness. Mr. Krabs, the once beloved owner of the Krusty Krab, now stood tall and menacing, his eyes cold and calculating as he approached Bat Squid. He wore a tailored suit, a symbol of his newfound wealth and power, but the darkness in his eyes betrayed the greed that had consumed him. "You really thought you could stop us, didn't you, Squidward?" Mr. Krabs said, his voice low and dangerous. "But you're just a sad little squid in a big dark ocean. This city belongs to me." Bat Squid's breathing was heavy, the gas still affecting him. "You killed my family," he growled, his fists clenching. "And now you want to kill the entire city." Mr. Krabs smiled, a cruel smile that sent a chill down Bat Squid's spine. "It's not personal, Squidward. It's just business. And once the city's under our control, I'll be richer than I've ever dreamed." Bat Squid's rage boiled over. This wasn't just about stopping the Joker anymore. This was about revenge. Before Mr. Krabs could react, Bat Squid lunged forward, his fists flying in a flurry of blows. But Mr. Krabs was strong, stronger than Bat Squid had anticipated. The two clashed in a brutal fight, their movements fast and violent, the sound of fists hitting flesh echoing through the park. But just as Bat Squid was about to land a finishing blow, Mr. Krabs pulled a device from his pocket, a detonator. "You're too late," Mr. Krabs sneered, pressing the button. "The poison's already in the water supply." Bat Squid's heart sank. He had failed. The city was doomed. The cold metallic clang of the doors echoed through the ruined amusement park as they slammed shut, sealing off the area from the rest of Bikini Bottom. Squidward's heart raced as he punched in the final security override, trapping himself, Mr. Krabs, and the Joker inside the enclosed space. The gas, the deadly toxin they had been about to release on the city, was already filling the air, swirling around them in a green, choking cloud. Squidward's vision blurred as he coughed, the gas stinging his throat and lungs, making every breath feel like fire. He had managed to trap them inside, stopping the gas from spreading to the rest of the city, but now they were all sealed in together. There was no escape. Through the haze, Squidward could see SpongeBob, the Joker, manically laughing as he tried to break through the sealed doors. His yellow form was frantic, smashing his fists against the reinforced metal, desperate to let the poison spread through Bikini Bottom. Mr. Krabs stood beside him, grinning like a madman, his eyes wide with greed. They were both consumed by their own madness, blind to the destruction they were about to cause. "You won't stop this, Squidward," the Joker screeched, his voice echoing through the chamber. "It's already too late. Once this gas hits the streets, Bikini Bottom is mine. Ha 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 ha." Squidward's fist clenched as he felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. His body ached, the effects of the gas already taking hold, but he couldn't stop now. He couldn't let them win. With a determined growl, Squidward launched himself forward, charging at the Joker with everything he had left. The two collided in a brutal struggle, fists flying, as the room around them filled with toxic smoke. The Joker cackled, his movements erratic and wild, but Squidward fought with the precision of a warrior, every strike aimed with purpose. The Joker fought back with a manic glee, his laughter echoing through the chamber, but Squidward was stronger, fueled by rage, by loss, by the need to protect the city. He struck the Joker over and over, each punch landing with a sickening thud. Behind them, Mr. Krabs roared, charging at Squidward with all the strength his greed could muster. "You'll never stop me, Squidward," Mr. Krabs bellowed, swinging a massive fist at Squidward's side. The impact knocked Squidward to the ground, his body hitting the floor with a loud crash. Pain shot through him as he struggled to get back to his feet, but the gas was making it harder to breathe. His vision swam as he looked up, seeing Mr. Krabs looming over him, his eyes wild with greed and bloodlust. "This city belongs to me," Mr. Krabs shouted, raising his fist for another blow. "I've worked too hard to let you take it away from me." Squidward's body screamed in protest as he pushed himself back up, dodging Mr. Krabs' next swing just in time. With a quick motion, he grabbed one of the Joker's discarded weapons, a crowbar, and swung it with all his strength. The blow connected with Mr. Krabs' head, sending him crashing to the ground unconscious. But there was no time to celebrate. The gas was still spreading, and the Joker was still laughing. Squidward turned to face the Joker, his body trembling with exhaustion and the effects of the gas. But the fight wasn't over. Not yet. SpongeBob the Joker stood at the center of the room, his grin wider than ever, but there was something different in his eyes now. His laughter was more strained, less manic. He looked at Squidward with a flicker of something human. "All it takes is one bad day," the Joker whispered, his voice low and trembling. His grin faltered for a moment, his wide eyes filled with something Squidward hadn't seen in him for a long time: guilt. I'm sorry, Squidward," SpongeBob muttered. "I'm tired. I'm so tired of pretending to be happy all the time. I couldn't take it anymore." Squidward stood frozen, his heart pounding as he watched his former friend break down in front of him. The Joker was slipping away, replaced by the SpongeBob Squidward had once known. For a moment, it was as if the madness had lifted, and the old SpongeBob was there crying, begging for forgiveness. "But I can't stop. I'm broken. This world,
It broke me. Squidward's fists loosened as he stepped towards SpongeBob, a wave of sadness washing over him. SpongeBob, we can stop this. We can make this right. But before Squidward could get any closer, SpongeBob's face twisted into that familiar maniacal grin. The Joker was back. The human emotion that had flickered in his eyes vanished, replaced by pure madness. No, the Joker screamed, backing away from Squidward. There's no going back. This is who I am now. Squidward's heart sank. He had hoped, for just a moment, that he could save his friend, but he knew now that the SpongeBob he had known was gone. Only the Joker remained. Squidward clenched his fists. He knew what he had to do. The room spun around them as the gas continued to pour into the air, filling every corner with its deadly fumes. Squidward's lungs burned with every breath, but he couldn't stop now. Not when the fate of the city, and possibly the world, rested in his hands. With a final growl, Squidward lunged at the Joker, their bodies colliding in a fierce, desperate struggle. The Joker fought with a frenzy born of madness, laughing through every punch, every blow, as if the pain only made him stronger. But Squidward fought with something more powerful than madness. He fought with purpose. The fight raged on, their movements a blur of violence and desperation. Every punch landed with a sickening thud. Every kick sent shockwaves through the room. The gas was making them weaker, slower, but Squidward refused to give up. He couldn't. He wouldn't. In a final, brutal blow, Squidward knocked the Joker to the ground, his body limp and broken. The Joker let out one last weak laugh, blood dripping from his mouth as he looked up at Squidward, his eyes filled with twisted delight. "You did it, Squidward," the Joker rasped. "You saved the city. But it doesn't matter, because we're all going to die anyway." Squidward stood over him, his chest heaving with exhaustion, his body shaking. The Joker was right. The gas was everywhere now, filling the room, seeping into every crack, every corner. There was no stopping it. But there was one last thing Squidward could do. Squidward knelt down beside the Joker, his hand trembling as he reached for his mask. He pulled it off, the cool air hitting his face as he stared down at the broken, bloodied form of SpongeBob. "I'm sorry," Squidward whispered, his voice heavy with grief. "I couldn't save you." The Joker, SpongeBob, smiled weakly, his eyes fluttering shut as he took his final breath. "It's okay, Squidward. It's over now." Squidward looked up, the gas swirling around him like a deathly fog. Mr. Krabs lay unconscious nearby, his greed finally silenced. The city was safe, but at what cost? As the effects of the gas took hold, Squidward felt his strength fading, his vision blurred, his body growing weaker with each passing second. But he knew he had done the right thing. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance. The police were trying to break through the doors, their voices muffled by the thick metal, but it was too late. Squidward stood, his body swaying as he moved toward the sealed doors. He could hear the officers shouting, banging on the doors, desperate to get inside. But Squidward knew what had to be done. He reached for the control panel, his fingers shaking as he locked the doors, sealing them shut from the inside. He pressed his forehead against the cold metal, his eyes closing as the world around him faded into darkness. "It's too late," Squidward whispered. "I've done all I can." As the gas filled his lungs, Squidward fell to his knees, his body weak and broken. He closed his eyes as the darkness overtaking him, as the sound of the sirens faded into the distance. And then, there was nothing.